presentation so we can go home and have margaritas. Cinco de Mayo, that's right. So let's see. I guess we're getting ready here. There we go. Yeah, it's working. So I had a dear friend. He used to be a stand-up comedian, Lou Epstein, if you knew him. And Louis was a stand-up comedian in the Catskills. And he always said the first thing when you get up to do a talk is make sure your fly is up. And damn, funniest thing was when I was testing the microphones, somebody caught my fly was down. So thank you very much. So hopefully that'll be the kind of fun we have today. So we're going to open the gift for humanity. It's not my gift, it's your gift. And I can't stand these, I can't see you. And I feel so weird standing up here. Everybody was asking me if I was nervous. Yeah, hell yes I was. But once I get up here, it sort of takes off. So we're going to open the gift of humanity. And BioTouch is what we're going to do. And actually, you're all going to leave here actually knowing how to do it. It's a simple hands-on healing technique. And the nice thing, the gift is, it's your birthright to be healthy, happy, and loved. It's yours. I mean, you were born with that. You didn't have to earn it. It just seems we spend a lot of money and time and energy trying to re-find it. And so what we're going to give you today is a nice healing technique, real simple, that you'll all actually be able to do when you leave here today. And if you have questions along the way, you're welcome to jump in. If you have a cell phone and it's on, just make sure it's a nice ring so I can enjoy it. And if you're on Facebook, you can live stream us if you'd like. So we were going to live stream it, but that was too much work. So the first thing we want to know is, what the heck is BioTouch? So take your two fingers of one hand and reach over to somebody next to you and just touch them lightly on the skin. Could be an arm, neck, and make sure everybody gets a chance to try it. Very lightly, like a butterfly. You got it. You can do healing work. That's how simple it is. Somebody had asked me, they're a master in a technique. They said, well, what really distinguishes this from another technique, this other technique? Simplicity. Simplicity and a technique that is for the masses of people. Everybody can do this technique. And hopefully you'll understand that a little more when we leave here today. So you can do it. Just because you were able to take those two fingers and lightly touch somebody on the skin. That's what BioTouch is. BioTouch is one person touching another on the skin. You can take the points and apply them any way you want, but that's not what we're going to call BioTouch. One of the biggest problems as we do BioTouch, we have to keep the technique really clear. If you know a lot of these other techniques, if we take things like Reiki, Jo Ray, a lot of these techniques, by the time they go generations down, you don't even know what it is anymore. If you take 10 Reiki practitioners and you put them in a room, you're going to get 10 different answers. When you get BioTouch, we know that the definition of that is one person touching another on the skin. Now, if you take those points and do them on yourself and you get effect, that's great. But we know that it's consistently effective if you touch somebody else. Perfect example, who here can tickle themselves? Okay, there you go. So why should we heal ourselves? And one of the big things about BioTouch is it's time we have relationships on love again. It's time we come back into relationship. It's time that we reach across the aisle and touch one another with a simple thing called love for the purpose of healing. We're really ready for that on the planet, don't you think? Is from what we're seeing. So that's what we're going to try and share with people. BioTouch has been around for 29 years as a public awareness. Tonight is sort of the launch. We want to thank IONS for having us come. This is like launching us in to a huge global movement of people doing BioTouch. So the first thing we want to talk about is sort of my story. Everybody likes stories. And I remember at 5 years old, I made they tell you to make a wish before you blow out the candles. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't even know that. There's 5 candles. Divine intervention. I was 5 years old. I had to make a wish. And I wished that everybody could be happy and healthy. And then I sort of felt guilty. I said to myself, why am I not wishing for a bike? Okay? Well, recently what I've learned is actually we carry a lot of our DNA of our trauma from our ancestors. And so I started to realize this is my ancestry. I'm a first generation Jewish, from a German Jewish family during Nazi Germany time. And this was my grandfather's, it was like a Sears and Roebuck in Hamburg. And he actually down here in that corner, I guess we have a little thing, down here, he was actually having, that was against the law to do this. It was a movement of people, and you weren't allowed to have the lights on at night and people show up. And here's my family here. That's actually my grandfather, my father. And so I actually started to see, as I started to recognize that we carry the trauma of our ancestors, that maybe at 5 years old, I already had come here understanding I needed to bring peace and love back to the planet. Now, the even more interesting is just a few years ago, I applied for German citizenship because they stripped my family of that, and the next generation, especially of the father side, was able to reapply for that citizenship. So I applied for citizenship. I'd never been to Germany. But it seemed like to close the circle. And BioTouch, I have seen now, was sort of an answer to my calling of trying to heal the outrageous things that happened to my family when they were actually on the last boat out. And so then I went through a whole life crisis, and you might know some of those people up there. Actually did my old, when my 20s were, and my parents, of course, broke up, and I'm in college, and I'm flipping out, and I'm throwing up blood, taking Valium. And so what else could you do except seek the spiritual way? And so as you can see, I started getting involved, and I put in all the right and wrong places. Who knows if it was right or wrong, but it took me to all these different kinds of teachers and all these kinds of lessons I was looking for to find that love, to find God, the Spirit, the Guru, whatever you wanted to call it. So I spent a lot of years doing yogas, meditations, and just the usual seeking. Any other young hippies out here? And so after doing that, of course, you get all involved. And so my ideal was, the best thing I had to do was get the hell out of society. So I did. You'll never believe where this picture came from. So on Facebook, good old Facebook, this friend of mine from high school, her father actually was an architect who created the Valley before there was the Valley Girls and stuff like that. He wanted to make the Valley in LA the new Beverly Hills. And so she contacted me through Facebook and says, I got something to send you. And she sent me this picture, which fit perfect to that house. Now, I actually lived in that stone house on the land because there was a period of time after doing all that seeking where it was time to drop out. And so, I became the hippie, Any other hippies here? Yeah, I know, we got a few. Okay, so my yoga teacher is the hippie. So, so we dropped out. Best time of my life. We lived with the deer and the antelope and the snakes. I mean, we lived in Rattlesnake Canyon. And of course, we were surrounded by, this was 36 acres, surrounded by thousands of acres of rivers and bean fields, wheat fields. This was Mormon country basically out there, so we had a lot of neighbors. We had a funny story about that one. So great Mormon, and he was rancher and cattleman. We used to clean the ditches for him so the water would flow. And I remember once he came down to the property, he was very intrigued by us living on this land. We had no running water, no electricity, no mailbox. To get water, the running water was you had to run to the well with a bucket and run back, especially in the wintertime. So I remember him coming down to the property one day, and he's standing around, we're all standing with him, and this deer fly lands on him. And he goes, whack! And then he looks up and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I killed one of your friends." That was a perfect statement. So we lived on this land for quite a few years, I think 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm not very good with numbers. And then we had to sell the land, and we had to move into town. Mancos, Colorado. Anybody ever been to Mancos, Colorado? Yes, you have. Mancos, Colorado. Anybody ever been to Mesa Verde National Park? Yes, okay. Then you've been to Mancos, Colorado, because Mesa Verde National Park sits in the Mancos Valley. Mancos at that time, that was the old hotel, which actually we'll tell you here in a minute. 900 people back in, when did I move there? I don't remember. 80s, young 80s or something. 900 people, basically Southern Baptists, Mormons, cowboys, and ranchers. So actually there was 898 of those folks, and then 2 hippies, my wife and I at that time. And the town really accepted us quite well. It was the kind of town where when I went into the local gas station, the old timers, you know, big burly guys would, you know, say they were going to get the sheep shears out, because as you remember, I had that big bushy beard right there. Whoop. So they were going to get the sheep shears out and cut my ponytail. And it was also the place every spring and fall they had cattle drives. And so we actually also ran, because they knew us so well, we ran a restaurant there. We made everything from scratch. They didn't really like that. You know, they wanted store-bought bread. I mean, we'd get up every morning and make bread. And, we also sold alfalfa sprouts at the local store. We ran their produce section. And it's the kind of town where alfalfa was only for horses, okay? So they called alfalfa sprouts, it was hippie chew back in those days. So this is the kind of town that we lived in, okay? And so when I lived out on the land, my life was perfect. No aches, no pains, you know, you could sit there and a fox would come up to you. You know, the deers would walk right by you, snakes would come up, nobody ever bothered you. But then you had to move into this town, and I got this back problem, this pain that went down my back and down my leg and into my toes. And so at that time, because of my old days on the land, I'd given up anybody that had a title. So if you were FBI, CIA, MD, chiropractor, naturopath, and healers. I wanted nothing to do with healers, because back in those days, everybody knew the way, and then they had their hand out for you to donate your whole life to them, you know. So I tried all the self-healing techniques I could do. I prayed to every guru I had learned about. I meditated, I did yoga, I did stretching. The pain didn't go away. For a year I had this pain. And I learned a really interesting thing about self-healing when you ask about that. Especially when you try to do it on your own. Because if the pain doesn't go away, you're a failure. You're obviously not good enough, or you must have a bad thought, right? Isn't that the thing? Just think positively and things will be better. So obviously I wasn't a good thinker. I do have a lot of raunchy thoughts. So, and the guru wasn't helping me, and God wasn't helping me. So not only did I have a physical pain, I had a spiritual pain. So that was a great lesson for me. Well, so I'm stuck in this town, and people are telling me about this guy who does healing work. And I'm like, what? This is back in the 80s. And they said, yeah, this guy, he's here in town, and he and his wife live out of town, and they're doing this healing work. You ought to go see him for your back. And I was like, I don't know, you know, just the idea of healer just drove me crazy. So finally, after a year, I'm on the way to the dump one day. I'm in my little Ford pickup truck, and I see this house. And that's the house they told me he lived in. Now, he didn't have a telephone, so he just had to show up. So as the story goes, the truck drove me up the hill. Okay, now you have to picture this because it gets sort of prophetic. So you drive up this driveway, and you come to this embankment, okay? And this guy comes out on the embankment, and he looks like a guy in the 50s in the Navy. Remember what they looked like? They had the big barrel chest, right? Tight white t-shirt, the V-neck in the t-shirt, rolled up sleeves, right? Cigarettes in the sleeve. Remember when we used to wear Brill Cream, a little dabble do you, right? He had that grease back, ducktail, kind of scoop neck, scoop hairdo. And he had 2 barking dogs, right? And I'm down below here in my cutoff jeans and flip-flops and a ponytail. And I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in the wrong place. And I said, well, you know, they told me there's some guy around here who does healing work. And he says, well, that's me. I said, really? He says, yeah, my name's Norman. I said, well, I've got a back problem. Do you think you can help? And he said, yeah, sure. Come on up to the house. So you have to walk up these stairs. You get to the house, and you open the sliding glass doors, and you're inundated with smoke. I mean, inundated with smoke. And by the time I could see through the smoke, here's his wife. And she's got this tight top on, tight jeans, tons of makeup, bouffant hairdo, and she's pouring coffee for him and her. And I sit down at the kitchen table, and inside I go, oh, I'm impressed. I mean, there was no whale music, no tingling cymbals, no incense. You know, the soaps were playing. You know, they offered me cookies and cakes. You know, and we gossiped about the local people and the wheat and we did all kinds of things for 20, 30 minutes. And finally he said, well, I guess we can go work on your back. Oh, okay. So we walk into the bedroom, and he lays me down on the bed, and he has me just take off my shirt, and he goes in and he washes his hands, and he comes out and he takes those 2 fingers that you used, and he lightly touches me, first at the end of my breastbone, and then a point in the back here, which you're actually going to learn how to do tonight. And then he does a few other points. He says, lay down on your tummy and half moon it. Like, half moon it? Well, scoot your pants down so I can see your tailbone. Oh, okay. So I lay down, and he starts doing a couple sets of points. And pretty soon, I hear the door open and close. He doesn't say anything. And he leaves, and I assume he's done. So I put on my shirt, and I go back out there, and we start talking about all kinds of things again. And finally, after 10, 15 minutes, I said, okay, so what'd you do? He said, well, I just touched. Okay, what should I expect to have happen? Whatever. Okay, should I come back? If you want. I wasn't getting any answers from this guy. And then came the kicker. All right, how much do I owe you? Oh, no, we don't charge. Huh? No, we don't charge at all. In fact, not only did they not charge, they discouraged people from leaving anything. So you'd always find like 20 bucks under the toilet seat, or a can of coffee under the bed, or a pack of cigarettes by the TV, or they'd bring food, and, you know, I never saw anybody bring a whole chicken, you know, that you had to cut the neck off, but I'm sure that happened too. It was amazing. I mean, and the light bulb goes off. What, you don't charge? Well, the short of that was, it was after a couple of sessions that the pain was gone. And I spent 6 months of my body actually doing a real complete alignment without any adjustment. But that's a story we'll get to in a minute. I started to listen to other stories. People that you would never imagine doing healing work. I mean, these old ranchers been working out with the cattle all day long. They'd come in and they'd have like corns or bunions on their feet, be taken off their shoes, and you'd be down on the ground working on their feet. And I remember one big tall guy, he was bucking bales. You know what bucking bales are? You have to take a 75-pound bale hay and you put it on your knee and you shove it up so it goes onto the truck. Well, this young man had popped his knee to the side, and his wife, he's like 6'5" and she's like 4'8", and she's dragging him in by the ear. And actually, when they started working on it, he could actually see the knees start to sort of come back, you know. And you would see people sitting in this place that normally would never talk to each other. I mean, you had Indians would come from the reservation. You would have the farm workers showing up that were working all in that area when it wasn't a bad thing to be an illegal immigrant. And farmers and ranchers, and then they used to call me the Jewish pacifist, you know, so they even accepted me there, you know. And people were just getting better, you know, in just 1-2 sessions. And finally, one day, one of the old timers said to me, he says, you know something, Paul? Norman and Carol brought love to the Mancos Valley. What? I'd been seeking all those gurus and all those practices and all those meditations and all those yoga exercises. And here it was, in a little town of 900 people, was the idea of love, being spoken by a man who would normally not say that. One of the other amazing things that happened is we taught classes. So what actually happened is that became the hotel, because what happened when he said, Norman and Carol brought love to the Mancos Valley, I'm like, we need to get this out to the public. Well, that was crazy. As you can see now, I actually wear shirts and pants and shoes. I do know how to wear a tie too, but I thought that was a little overkill tonight. So we created the public teaching of BioTouch with Norman. And we actually took this hotel and turned it into a BioTouch center, which the funny story of that is all of this up in here, these were rooms. People would say, we actually stayed in one of those rooms, but we actually had people come from all over the country to learn the technique and get certified. Down in here was some more rooms where we did the sessions. In here was a place where you could eat and a library, and we'd have meetings in there. The funny thing was, so this is right on Main Street. So we would go in, we'd take people, they'd meet us in here, we'd take them into a room, close the door. Well, the funny thing was, one day the Mormon church in Utah told all the Mormon people in the church, you cannot go there anymore, because they thought there was some hanky-panky going on in there. But what happened, there were so many of them getting work done, because it was a lot of Mormon people living there, they had to change that rule. Okay, so a lot of things happened in that hotel that we can't tell you about, but that'll be in the second book. What happened in the hotel. So we took that over, and that is the birthing place of this thing that we now call BioTouch. It's gone through numerous names, and we started to teach it, as we will tonight, and have different ways to teach it. The technique is so simple, it fits on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. This is it. This is the whole technique, the points. We have the manual, which we'll show you too, and this is the way we teach it, okay? Where we actually tell you exactly where those points are, and then there's a video that comes with it and shows somebody doing it. So it is very simple. And so we started that teaching here, and we used to have meetings with the different certified practitioners, and I'll never forget at one of those meetings,